Welcome back into the play-by-play, a sports media talk show from Awful Announcing, a live sports media talk show from... Hold on here. Let me close out the YouTube box as I'm playing myself in my ear. We're back. We're live. It is a new format for the show. I'm Brendan Clean, a staff writer at Awful Announcing. That's Ben Axelrod, a senior editor at Awful Announcing. Today, a tale of two Saturdays on sports TV, our week one college football media reaction show. Ben, I was going to introduce the show before my own voice started playing in my ear by saying that the WWE is on SportsCenter now. There are highlights of professional wrestling happening on SportsCenter, and I need you to tell me if that is a sign of the apocalypse or just your perfect world.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I'm not one of those people who's like, yes, like now everybody has to like pro wrestling because I like pro wrestling. Like I like pro wrestling and now I guess it's good they're getting more exposure, but like I'm not super pumped about the idea of WWE being on SportsCenter because I know the type of comments it will lead to. But yeah, I mean, this is when that deal went down for ESPN to become the host of the premium live events. We were talking about that privately. Like, is ESPN going to cover this now? More or less like it's an actual sport, and the deal hasn't even kicked in yet, and they're running promo packages and recap packages for the show. So I think that kind of tells you where this is all heading.
They got John Cena trying to teach us how to use the new app on the commercials. It's all happening. But let's get into it. It's going to be a little bit of a tighter package on these live shows. We're going to bring you 3 at least streams per week, giving you all the news and everything you need to know about sports media right here on our YouTube channel. So hit follow or subscribe wherever you're listening, wherever you're watching. That's going to be the new deal. Our guy Drew Lerner is going to be in the mix. Ben and I will be here for you like we always have been, and it should be an even better way to get everybody the sports media content that you are all hungry for. But Saturday, Ben, it was week one. Well, the whole weekend was maximum college football. It is back. It is fall. And this particular weekend was notable beyond that because on the pregame shows, there were 2 very noteworthy characters. One on their way in, one on their way out. Let's start with the much more wholesome of the 2, which was Lee Corso being sent off into the sunset, into retirement on the show that he made and minted, College GameDay. We knew this was coming. We talked about where it would happen. It was in Columbus with all of the cast and characters that we're used to seeing, and then some old favorites as well, Ben, saying goodbye to the legend. What did you think of how they executed this whole thing and pulled off what was a long time coming and a tribute to, I mean, an icon if there ever was one?
I think this is the stuff that like ESPN is arguably when it's at its best. Like when it's sentimental, when it's honoring one of its own, when it's leaning in, I think, to the historical aspects of Lee Corso's run. And I mean, I think it's a really high degree of difficulty. And I also think, you know, the elephant in the room is that like Lee Corso is not somebody I think at this point in his life, understandably so, who is who can be on TV every week. And I you know, I think everybody has seen that's what happens when you age. And so I think that the way they pulled it off, the way they were able to do it in total celebratory fashion, I think that this is ESPN doing what ESPN does best. So between not only Saturday, but also the tribute that they did, the video tribute show a week prior, like I think they were in a tough spot because I think they probably left last season realizing that this was going to be his last season. And they probably reached a point where they realized, okay, we only got one more show in us here. And so to pull it off in the nature that they did, I thought was really impressive.
It was this fascinating kind of tightrope walk, I think, where you had to do a tribute show to Corso where you couldn't actually have a lot of Lee Corso in it. Just because, like you said, I mean, he's 90.
Right.
He obviously has relied on the prompter and Kirk Herbstreit and the producers more and more as the time has gone on that he's been on this show. And so it was like, you know, you got to have him because he's the guy that's being celebrated, and that was the whole lead up to this week. But it wasn't any sort of big long monologue. Even like, Jimmy Johnson got to kind of host his own goodbye at in the playoffs last year on Fox. That wasn't really the case here. Even Hubie Brown, who had something similar in February or so, like he got to wax poetic about all the voices and the mentors and everything that he got to experience. It was very different with Corso, and so it was, Chris Fowler coming back. The kind of, I don't want to call it a sight gag, but like the made-for-TV moments of him in the tux and the Corso headgear that all the other hosts put on, and the, tributes that Herb Street and others narrated. It was a lot of that stuff, and the old footage of Corso to kind of harken back to those days. But yeah, it was the syrupy stuff that I think, like you said, ESPN, Disney, they do very well. And I also think like the other aspect of it to me that jumped out was that there's just not a lot of like, it was this weird opportunity to do storytelling on sports TV, which we don't, we always kind of complain, or there's always just that background chatter of, is that going away and everything else. But like when you get to do it through a talent and through a personality, it's this funny, like you're backing into an opportunity to kind of show off the history of college football through this one lens. And I don't know, I just found myself really enjoying that opportunity to watch it, knowing it doesn't come around very often, and it's awkward that it kind of has to be done through Lee Corso, but so be it.
Yeah, and I think another part that I would commend ESPN for is, it's like, there's this idea anytime a high-profile talent leaves, it's like, who's going to replace them? And they've really already replaced Lee Corso, and they've kind of done it in the aggregate with Pat McAfee and Nick Saban. Matt McAfee brings the more lighthearted approach that Corso brought, and Saban obviously brings the former head coach's perspective. And so it's not this awkward thing where now there's going to be somebody new sitting on the desk next week. I don't know how they're going to be closing the show now moving forward. I think that's probably the last remaining question, but it's not this awkward thing. And it's not this kind of cutthroat type deal where it's like, okay, Lee Corso's out and now Urban Meyer's sitting in for him. Like they have this figured out. They have their cast moving forward. And I think that really only added to Saturday, because it does feel like a celebration and not something where you're constantly looking forward.
And none of the people, Saban, McAfee, whoever, that have taken up more of the airtime as Corso's role has diminished are competitive about it or weird about it in some kind of way that there's tension or whatever. It was just such a positive thing. I think fans' patience with him has been rewarded, and him and the people around him have kind of understood the slow off ramp. Like, you really couldn't have scripted it better. But I mean, College GameDay, I think, you mentioned like, how do they close the show if the headgear is going to be retired, which Reese Davis kind of confirmed what most people expected. It's not like they're going to have Nick Saban throwing on a mascot head instead of Corso going forward or anything, but it's an institution. It's a show people care about. What do you think it'll look like, at the very end, but also just sort of, do you think this is the cast for the foreseeable future now that Saban's on board? I mean, he is 73. The Kirk Herbstreit question with his million roles seemingly in sports media, like there's always a wonder of if and when he'll leave all of his jobs. What do you think that show will be? Even though we have had a gradual transition, this is sort of an inflection point where everybody can reevaluate.
I think obviously they'll stick with the predictions to end the show. That's how all these shows end. The question is, do they add some sort of theatrical element in the spirit of the headgear? I would think it's probably just wait and see. I would think that it's going to be, does something evolve naturally with McAfee? Does something evolve with Saban? Like, do they come? I think it would be a mistake to force something and to say, okay, this is the new headgear pick. And then as silly as it seems, like, has to live in the shadow of the actual headgear pick. I think you just do the predictions. I think that's how, most of these shows end anyways. And if something comes about, then something comes about. The other thing though, I would say is, the McAfee field goal thing is gaining a lot of traction. That's like been the big segment that they've added since McAfee joined. And it's really, it seems like something that goes viral every week. And so I think that, maybe you alter it and like everybody else does their predictions, and then you go to the field goal kick and that's how it ends. Although most weeks it would probably end with a miss. So maybe not, because that'd be pretty anticlimactic, but yeah, I think it's just a matter of, does something evolve naturally as opposed to forcing something. As far as the cast, I think that's a really interesting question, because I don't think they're adding anybody. Like, I think this is the cast until it's not the cast. And I think that Saban was probably that last piece. It's like, who could you add that you already have everything you need? There's not another, maybe another former player who's like a little more modern than Kirk Herbstreit and Desmond Howard, but you're still, and I also think the other thing is the show needs a little more SEC flair, as weird as that sounds to say for an ESPN show, but you have Kirk Herbstreit and Desmond Howard, who are two Big Ten guys. Obviously you have Saban, who does bring that SEC thing, but it does feel, as we enter this cable channel type thing between the two shows, it feels like they need to boost their SEC credentials. So maybe Tim Tebow ultimately winds up on the show. I think he probably is the only one out there with the star power to match that type of program. But I could see a situation where this is the start of a transition. Because again, Nick Saban is 73 years old. He's already getting pitched to go back to Alabama. He's already getting linked to all these jobs. Who knows how long he is for it? Herbstreit has a full plate and has been doing this for over 30 years now. Like, it wouldn't be surprising if Herbstreit said, like, hey, I just want to focus on calling games now, or I just want to scale back. Desmond just re-signed on a new deal, but he's, I'd say, of the talent on the show, he's probably seemingly the most replaceable. He doesn't have the same fanfare the other guys have, and he hasn't been there since the start either. So I think this is the cast for the foreseeable future, but I also think it is, if you were to told me this show looks totally different within the next 5 years, that wouldn't surprise me in the least.
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, Saban's 73, so, it's not as if you can plan on him being here for the next 30 years of the show. None of these guys, like, it's I guess maybe McAfee, but like,
yeah. But he's McAfee's year to year. McAfee every year threatens to quit, it seems like.
I think McAfee's year to year with everything he's up to. I mean, he's been week to week this summer. He went to Australia and shot a movie all of a sudden. So you can never. He's incredible, and obviously they will do everything they can to stay. And I think fans have come around to him over time. So I'm not trying to say that he shouldn't be on the show. I don't know what his personal priorities will be, but like, I think the kicking thing at the end, I've seen people throw that around just because it is so popular. You can't end a pregame show with that. That doesn't make any sense. Even if they make it. Okay, and now a generationally important college football game. Back to you. Like, what are we doing? That would not make any sense. So I think it works as a palate cleanser. But what's funny is it kind of operates the same way that the headgear pick ultimately started to, which is that it just becomes a viral moment. Like, I don't know if people really tuning in the last 2 minutes of College GameDay just to see what Corso did, but every college football social media team in the country was ready to, whether they were the final pick or not, like, have something to say about it, or, make an edit, an AI generated, maybe nowadays, edit of Corso with their teams. It's all just for that. And the field goal thing is kind of similar. It's like, it's just for the internet. It doesn't really matter where it happens. And I maybe just, that's what the show is. You either tune in and you watch it fully, and you're still going to do that without Corso and without the headgear, or you just consume it online, and all the order of operations is kind of less important. Let's get to a very online show that was running opposite College GameDay on Saturday morning, which was Big Noon Kickoff. Of course, it always has, but it was much more focused on this time around, because Barstool founder, owner, and star Dave Portnoy made his debut on Fox's Big Noon Kickoff from Columbus also. And I think a similar question is where we kind of have to start here, Ben, which is like how they did this, how they executed it, similar to saying goodbye to Corso and having to do it with not a lot of Corso. they deployed Portnoy. I found myself feeling like it was maybe more than I expected of him on air, but also every time he was on air, it felt a little awkward and forced. Like, so maybe those actually point in the same direction, and less of him and more strategic deployment of him is where this will go. But by the end of the show, and you wrote like kind of a recap review of this whole thing for awfulannouncing.com, but by the end of the show, I was like, this again? Like, it was the same act each time he came on camera. Maybe that changes when he's not the villain at Ohio Stadium doing the Michigan shtick, but I can't help but feel like they had a while to prepare for this, and it felt very one note on Saturday.
Yeah, it's interesting because he got added to the show, and there was this idea like, okay, he is just like a cast member now. Like, he's going to be sitting there next to Urban Meyer and Brady Quinn and Matt Leinart and Rob Stone, like all season long, like on the main desk. And as we got closer, Portnoy said something to the effect of like, I really don't know what my role in this show is going to be. And I think the media is blowing it a little out of proportion. Chris Felica said something similar. And then by the time we got to all the drama about the stadium, obviously like it became clear, like, oh, like he's not in a starring role per se. He is going to be additive, but he is not going to be a part of the cast. I probably had a more favorable review of it. I enjoyed his presence on it. And frankly, it was just like a reason to watch Big Noon Kickoff, which is not a show that I have spent a lot of time watching, really since 2019 when it first launched. Like, I'll pop in here and there, and they are at Ohio State a good amount of times. But even then, like, they just, we talked about this with Chris Vanini on a past episode. Like, they basically just became a Big Ten propaganda show meant to amplify whichever game they were covering, as opposed to a full-on college football pregame show. So I thought
so gimmicky, like bringing Pochettino and Alexi Lawless on, having the Wendy's stuff at the it's just like, come on, don't make it 3 hours if you don't have 3 hours of content.
Yeah, the soccer cross promotion, like all the cross promotion, just feels very forced, and always feels like you would never see Big Noon Kickoff doing, or not Big Noon. You never see, maybe, like, I don't know. Are we going to see, I guess we do see WWE guys on game day sometimes, but it's like, it's not just so,
but
like,
they're doing something. They're not just there to talk about the WWE.
Yeah, you're right.
It was rough, but yeah, back to Portnoy. So you thought it worked, but my question is, how does it work when it's not at Ohio State and he doesn't get banned from the stadium and he has to just like be additive to a regular old week 7 kind of shitty matchup pregame show?
Yeah. So I agree with you actually about the whole Ohio State thing. That's like kind of the other part of this is I enjoyed the act early on. And by the end, it's just like, okay, like, it's just, you go, like, the fans are booing you this whole time. It's overpowering your segment. Like, how sustainable is this going to be? And I think the other part of that is that reaction is not going to change in Columbus anytime. Like, that's every time Portnoy is on screen, they are just going to boo him mercilessly. And they are in Columbus for, like, I would venture to guess, like 50 to 60% of the season. Like, it's not like they just go to Columbus twice a year. Like, they go to Columbus a lot. Like, they'll go to Columbus for like Ohio State versus Marshall. So they'll have to figure that out, because I don't think that is sustainable. And maybe it's those weeks they're in Columbus, they narrow it down to, okay, Portnoy is only going to do like 1 or 2 hits, and then we're just going to kind of get this out of the way. So I don't know. I don't know if they thought that one through.
Not to mention that if this whole ban silliness continues, like, he can't be there for the last bit if they choose to go on to the field and as normal. And like, there was the booing, like, you're right, it sounds ridiculous because he was kind of playing it up on his own, but at the same time, like, there was a moment where I believe I think it was the LSU Clemson game that they were talking about, and you could tell he had actually done like a fair bit of prep and research on it and had a point to make. And then they were actually booing so loud that he couldn't even get it out. And then I think Brady Quinn or Urban had to kind of interject and address the awkwardness that it was like literally so loud so as to make it kind of bad content. It's just it's like it's not, SummerSlam. So it has to be a pregame show still. And that's where I wonder. It's not even an anti-Portnoy thing. Like, that's why I highlight that moment is I think he has been in this industry long enough and knows what he's doing to be able to deliver actual commentary. But them trying to work him into that, I think, is going to kind of be the effort of making it work long term. I also just, not to beat a dead horse, but like, that show is both needing another shakeup on the main desk, in my opinion, and also just the talent that's there, separate from whatever I might think of them, is not the perfect group to have Dave Portnoy join up with. Like, and that's another problem here is like Brady Quinn can't get past the silliness quick enough to make his next point that he's excited to elucidate on. And Urban Meyer just is so still awkward and kind of like all the worst things about Jimmy Johnson on TV or whatever you want to say, like it feels like the show's at odds with itself. That was what I kept thinking.
Yeah, and it feels like there should be some chemistry there with like Meyer, but like, just having covered him and being an Ohio State fan now, he takes himself so seriously, and he takes the rivalry stuff so seriously, and his perception within the rival, that like, I don't think he'll ever, you're never going to get McAfee and Saban between Portnoy and Urban. Like, you're just not, for a variety of reasons. But it wasn't even just Urban. Like, I think that's something they could try to build on, is Urban and Portnoy interacting. But I don't think
the jersey thing was funny when he said like, "Oh, I have a new house, I can use it for toilet paper," or whatever. Like that is kind of the moment you're trying to gin up when you do a little gag like that. But then it's sort of like, McAfee is just a unicorn, and I think Saban is just more down for those things. And it's also they had an existing relationship. Like, it's not 1-to-1, and maybe that will get better over the course of the season, but it just felt like two different shows.
Yeah. Well, and it wasn't just Urban either. Like, there was a moment where Portnoy, I think, took a jab at the USC defense, and like Matt Leinart got all bent out of shape about it, like legitimately upset. It's like, all right, like what show?
Mark Ingram tried to rub Portnoy's head at one point. It kind of like legit got tense for a moment, because it was just like, I'm on TV. Why are you making me look ridiculous? I don't know. There was a lot of strange little moments like that where you're like, is everyone on the same page and like want to be doing this?
Yeah, and I think you called it out in our Slack channel. Like, the only person who seemed to in on it was Rob Stone. Like, Rob Stone was the only one who was really selling for Portnoy. But I think there's something there. I actually thought, I think that when he first interacts with the crew, like I think that's obviously a moment, him making his entrance. And then I thought, they tried to pair him with Chris Felica. They tried to, I can't remember if they did another segment with another one of the cast members, but I actually thought On His Own was when he was at his best. And I think they're going to Iowa State next week. I'll be interested to see what that looks like, because obviously that's going to be a little more of a neutral audience for Portnoy. And I'm interested to see if like there's like a big, like, Barstool type of following there, or if this continue, and if so, how that further evolves the show.
I guess it'll eventually kind of be a question of like, does the Portnoy stuff work well enough in Fox's eyes, online and in the live environment, and bringing the best out of some of the other talent in certain ways, that do they cater the show more to him over time, and maybe away from the Ingram, Quinn, Leinart group. I think a lot of average college football fans would probably be bothered by that, but you don't bring Portnoy in and then, give up or say, oh, well, he didn't work with what we were doing. You're shaking it up for a reason. So how far are you willing to keep that shakeup going, I guess, will be the ultimate question. All right. We've always closed with hot mics. We will continue to do so with the live edition of the play-by-play. Something we like, something we dislike, something we just want to shout out from the world of sports media this past week, or I guess in the new incarnation, it'll be more day-to-day. Ben, what do you got for us?
Yeah, I'm actually not going to do it day to day. I'm going to do it from like a few weeks ago. The Dallas Cowboys docuseries, America's Team, the Cowboy and His Gamblers, about the 1990s Dallas Cowboys. If you haven't checked it out yet, I highly recommend it. I can't speak to like, cause I don't like most of those teams. My first memories of the Cowboys was like when Deion Sanders joined them. And so that was for the third of their 3 Super Bowls in the 90s. So I don't remember a lot of the earlier stuff. So I can't speak to like, I know Jeff Pearlman, who's written a book about the Cowboys, has taken a lot of issue with like Jerry Jones's portrayal and all that. But I just think a look back at that era and like, you mentioned Jimmy Johnson, like how outspoken Jimmy Johnson was just as an NFL coach, and like just what a crazy time it was with all these personalities, and Jerry Jones doing stuff like leaving the NFL's group licensing deal for uniforms and striking his own deal with Nike. And just like the fact that all of this stuff was happening in real time, Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson feuding the week leading up to a Super Bowl. It's just like, all this stuff, like I'm vaguely aware of some of these personalities and know what they did and know what they accomplished, but to relive it in real time and to imagine what that was like from a media standpoint without social media and just tuning into the news every day must have just been insane. So as we get ready here for the NFL season, if you're looking to get in the mood still, I highly recommend that docuseries.
It was so like, this sounds stupid, but like artistically done too. Like it's cool to watch it. Like,
yeah,
you don't see, I mean, we've talked about a few. I know you review and cover even more of these for our site than I do, but there's almost so much of it at this point that maybe I'm like more, it's easier to wow me. I think this one even gets you above like, oh, this is interesting. Like it's genuinely the cinematography of the interviews, the backdrop, the Western vibe of all of it, the, cutaway footage, the B-roll stuff of kind of like that oil country, Wild West, whatever, the music, the
soundtrack was big.
The graphics and the kind of like big stomping, date, time, names, place, all that stuff that is so easy to just treat as nothing in a doc is like immediately you turn this one on and you're in almost because of that, like before you even get to anything going on. And then, I mean, the footage is incredible. They got everybody to talk. There's no glaring holes, at least that I could think of people that were, they're even getting like long sit downs with Romanowski and people that are like side characters in just certain chunks, and they're interspersed into the rest of it because they had them. So why not? Like, it was super thorough and super good. I think you're dead on. This was not you, being bowled over with awful Netflix docs and then getting one good one. I think this is, I mean, like if you care about sports Emmys or what, like this is going to win everything.
I think so too. All
right. Mine is Brian Russillo going to Barstool. More Barstool talk here. I think.
Yeah.
I wrote about for the Awful Announcing newsletter a while ago that when Ryan kind of first hinted that his contract would be up this summer, and I just came down to the conclusion, like, I can't see him going anywhere. He's one of the faces of The Ringer. He has pretty much carte blanche to do whatever he wants on his very popular, solo show that he does for them 2-3 times a week. He has and clear liking from Bill Simmons, to do his podcast all the time. Some of their other, the Rewatchable, whatever. Like he's a face of the network. And as they moved into video, it was like, okay, well, that might be the one thing you would have said. Hey, maybe he wants a little bit of a higher profile. If he's tucked behind the Spotify paywall or just on audio, that's not, quite the platform he could theoretically have, but now that's there. So what else would he want? It seems like the answer is he wanted to go somewhere where he had a little bit more ownership and control over everything that he was doing. I still don't fully know the parameters, I should say, Ben, of like what the network or independent business, like, is it going to be suddenly the Ryan Russillo podcast network that has 8 shows by, the end of 2026? I don't really know, but it seems like that's what he wanted. Maybe the Ringer wasn't willing to offer it, and Barstool, that's their deal. That's how they operate, even for much lesser talents than Ryan Russillo. So that's a natural landing place once you kind of realize what he was hoping for. And I don't know. I'm just curious to see kind of how he really fits into what they're doing, if it's just kind of a tangential branch of a tree, or if he's really like a, is he going to be on Barstool Beach House next summer? Like, we'll see. But I just like it from our standpoint that it's an interesting little wrinkle and a new kind of change up to the status quo of this guy's here, that guy's over there, and everything.
Yeah, I don't know like what this new company theoretically is going to look like that he's going to be leading. And so that's like, I hesitate to comment too much on that, but it's weird because I just can't envision it. Like if you were to say like Bill Simmons is running off and he's going to start his own company, I could envision what that would look like. Same with Colin Cowherd and the volume. Like, right, I have no idea. Like, is it video? Is it writing? Is it podcast? Like, he has a lot of interests. So I don't know what that's going to look like. I mean,
I kind of took it as like, this day and age, everybody technically has their own little LLC that really is just like a company for their show. I mean, that's my assumption at this point. Okay. I don't think I don't know. He's never really been at a place, a level, or he's just never expressed wanting to do anything much bigger than that. But I guess we'll see, to your point.
And then I think the other part of it is I would imagine he's going to have a significant presence on Wake Up Barstool, the Fox show. And I don't think that's been reported. And I don't know that to be a fact, but it just makes too much sense, especially as they get, one, he's really good on college football. He knows his shit when it comes to the NFL. And then two, as they do get into the NBA calendar and especially around the playoffs, like, that's like, I think, really appealing for that show. The idea that they could have Ryan Russillo on. I don't know how often it would be or what that would look like, but I would like consider him an anchor of their NBA coverage. And that was another thing I thought about was like Barstool, for as big as it's gotten, doesn't have much of a presence in the NBA media space. And so this is like a big player. Like, this is somebody who people tune into. You wrote about it. The Bill and Ryan Sunday pods are a staple of every NBA fan, diehard or casual fans, diet when it comes to their NBA media consumption. So to get Ryan Russillo, like, I think it would be really strange to me if he wasn't a big part of their NBA coverage now that they have a daily show on Fox.
It's probably up to him, and that's sort of what I was saying too. I think we have the same 2 unanswered questions of what does this new enterprise that he wants to head up actually look like? What's the scope of it? And then second, how much is he a Barstool, teammate versus just somebody that is sort of running a company whose content is licensed by Barstool, and that's sort of that. Like, he has he goes on, pardon my take, multiple times a year already. And there's obviously some other relationships you could point to there, but is this something where he is like under contract to appear on the TV show? Or is this something where, Dave Portnoy calls him up a couple times a month and he does a hit from his house on a podcast mic? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's always the question with Barstool, I think, because they do business this way. So, but yeah, if it is, he's flying to Chicago once a week to do NBA, then that's a much bigger platform than he was getting even at the Ringer. So that would definitely make this all make a little more sense. But that will wrap us up for the week. Again, hit follow, hit subscribe. We'll be here for you live on YouTube at least 3 times every single week. Show will be in your audio platform of choice as well. Hit awfulannouncing.com. In the meantime, to get caught up minute to minute on the wide world of sports media, follow us on social media as well. Wherever you are, we are. X, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all over the place. And we'll catch you next time.